So we have a couple of major stories and bets going on today, which we got to go over. First, the bet is that Federal Chair Jerome Powell and the Federal Reserve are going to cut rates when they make their announcement this week on December 10th. And the second bet is that Donald Trump and the Republicans are absolutely going to get crushed in the upcoming midterms. So I want to give you guys the details of the stuff, and let's jump right in. So first headline, Fed expected to cut rates despite deep divisions over U.S. economic outlook. And when you look at the recent survey of economists, basically 85% are saying they're going to cut rates. Okay, so this is the bet on the Fed. We'll see if it indeed pans out this week. It does matter, so do pay attention to this stuff. And looking at 25 basis points, so a small cut. I'm sure one of Trump's people, Marin, I think is his name, he'll say, oh, we got to do 50 and just cut. And I'm sure there's going to be other people in the Fed that are going to try to be jockeying for position to gain favor with Trump to try to get the Fed chair. At the moment, Hassett is the favorite, but you never know. Trump can change his mind any moment, or his handlers could change his mind any moment. And I think they're going to make the announcement probably after the new year. That's the bet. At the moment, also, Trump and his people are absolutely getting crushed and blamed for the current state of the economy. Essentially, the Fed's thinking, okay, we have to cut rates because the job market looks weak. And in a consumer-based economy, if people don't have jobs, like the whole thing shuts down. And you're going to see major problems happening in Trump's economy, basically. So first, America's widening economic divide endangers Trump's midterm hopes. Essentially, you're looking at a K-shaped economy. Rich get richer, poor get poor. You probably know this stuff, but it's worth repeating because it shows up in the data like every day we look at this stuff. Trump says weird, whacked out stuff all the time. So this is, I guess, what he's saying this week. Quote, I think affordability is the greatest con job. Okay. He said at the White House this week. Democrats, quote, look at you and they say affordability. They don't say anything else. And it's kind of weird because, there's a reason why people, not just Democrats, but people talk about, affordability or cost of living is because things are expensive. We don't make enough and things are expensive. And Trump complains about this whole thing. It's the whole thing is bizarre, but that's, what the Trump presidency is. And sort of, you can see everything just falling off a cliff. And you read some more here. It says, at the same time, though, the administration has sought to show it is acting to lower prices, cutting tariffs on several agricultural imports last month in an effort to reduce grocery bills, a key source of concern among U.S. voters. The best way to describe this one is sort of like Trump's the kind of person that, kicks you in the knee and then gives you crutches or Band-Aid and says, see, I'm here to help you. It doesn't really make sense. They're the ones who put the tariffs in place that made, things cost more. And then it's like, oh, I'm going to lower the tariffs that I put in place and therefore I must be helping you. And I don't think people are that dumb. I think they see what's going on. I mean, you see it in the data here. 64% is the number. And that is what? Record share of Americans say the government is mishandling the economy. So 64% of the people are saying that. So people can see it. You can see it also. You also see something like this where people's situation is not good. Basically, your wages are not keeping up with inflation. Here's a chart here. Wage growth for America's lowest earners is cooling sharply. Essentially, even if you did get a raise, say the last couple of years, because there is, it shows that, there were some raises there before. But for example, if they gave you, a raise 2 years ago or a year ago, but they didn't give you a big raise, say in the last 20 years or so, then it still doesn't make up for the massive rise in cost of living. And I think a lot of people are feeling right now. You just see it everywhere. Let me read some more. It says, recent figures pointed to a pronounced K-shaped economy as the weak jobs market and stubbornly high prices widen the difference between the top and the lowest earners. At the Atlanta Federal Reserve Bureau analysis of Bureau of Labor Statistics, data shows that after years of above-trend growth, pay for the America's lowest earners has slowed more sharply than for the highest, erasing much of the progress made during the past decade in closing the gap. Essentially, when you look at consumer confidence, you can see it right here. Depends where your income levels are if you feel okay about the economy, especially what this shows you. Over 125, things are going down in terms of your confidence, but you still feel okay. But then everyone else, right, basically, essentially under six figures is going down. You can see it. And this is in terms of consumer confidence. And this reflects in your willingness to want to take any risks economically. Do you want to make big purchases? Like, for example, let's say you got a car and you're just like, you know what, I'm just going to run this car as long as I can. I'm going to get it fixed. Opposed to thinking like, hey, I've had this car for 3 years. That's just too long. I need to go get a new one. Like, not many people are saying that. So big purchases, it matters because it drives the economy. If you're a consumer-based economy, people need to feel confident they're going to have a job and feel confident that things are going to keep, going okay in order to commit to big purchases. And remember, everything's also based on debt, and that's the USA, which is the promise that I'll borrow money, and the promise is I have a job and I'll pay you back someday. That's the promise. This is also going on as well, depending on if you have assets. So if you do, let's say in terms of stock market, that's a better way to say it, stock ownership, you feel better about things. If you don't, then you're just like, my wages aren't keeping up. I don't have any stocks, so I don't really pay attention to stuff at all. And it's like things don't look good. And so I'm showing you guys all these things so you can see like how things are completely divided. When you read more of this stuff, you can see while the bill, talking about the Trump's changes in the big beautiful bill thing, while the bill maintains tax cuts unveiled during the President Trump's first term in the White House, it also imposes cuts to Medicaid and food stamps. Okay. So again, this is coming from Financial Times. So a lot of people are going to really, really struggle going into next year. Also, the Congressional Budget Office said the bill would probably lower households' resources in the lowest decile, so like the lower 10% of income distribution by $1,600 per year, compared with a rise of about $12,000 for the top 10%. So not only do you see consumer confidence divide between rich and poor in the U.S. economy now, frankly, it's going to get worse in 2026. These are the projections and charts. I just read you sort of the description of it. It's unfortunate that this is what it is, and I feel like for many MAGA people, like Trump's doing what he said he was going to do, but for many MAGA people, they just, I'll just be frank with you guys, like they get so blinded by their racism and hate that they completely ignore jobs or the economy or any sort of rationality. And it's hard to talk about these things because, like, true story, I was showing my wife Yeji, like one of the right-wing influencer people, just always curious, her thoughts. Like, hey, what do you think about this person? Just, general thoughts. And it was funny because the first thing she said, she's like, the right-wing person we're looking at, she's like, that's more like a church pastor or preacher. That's literally what she said. And it was funny because I always talked about this stuff. Like, when I do my channel, I try to show you guys a bunch of charts and stuff like that. But I know for MAGA people, if you involve numbers or charts, they get all confused and they don't understand any of this stuff. And so you'd have to talk like the most simplest terms. And, to Trump's credit, he's good at talking dumb, right? He just says dumb crap all the time and he writes out a bunch of memes and stuff. And I guess there's a portion of the USA that goes for that because it's simple communication. I hope that we don't have to lower our communication standards to that forever. I hope that people aren't that stupid. I mean, that's why I try to show you complex things. You got to show charts sometimes. Like it's easy to visualize and be honest with people. Like, hey, if your food benefits are going to get cut, or Medicare is going to get cut, or if your overall net situation is going to be bad, just tell people the truth on this stuff. And I think people are going to find out in a hard way when essentially there's not going to be enough money coming in compared to all the money going out. And it's frustrating to see this. What's the right word to describe it? How about this? Before the election, right? Several Nobel Prize winning economists are coming out and saying basically Trump's going to drive us off a cliff, and I remember seeing all these things. I would show it all the time on the channel. And, most people who are in the MAGA camp, Chris, you're just so dumb. We just have to attack black and brown people. And it's like, how do you argue with that logic? it makes it hard. I mean, I laugh at it. It's really hard. Now, that's not everyone. That's why I make it clear. It's not everyone, but, there's a portion of the population that the best way to describe it is racism is expensive. It's the best way to describe it. So that's what you're seeing here. It shows up too with the Trump people. This was a wild story. Mom of Karen Levitt's nephew rejects White House narrative of her ICE arrest. So basically, the long story short, she's saying, hey, the Levitt family, Karen Levitt, all these people are liars. They're lying about me. They're lying about my relationship with my son. And, basically the Levitts are trying to, I guess, make the case that she's a deadbeat mom. That's basically what it boils down to. And she's like, no, I'm not a deadbeat mom. I made contact with my kid and stuff like that. who knows the story of this stuff, the full story. I don't know. I read through it, I'll just say this. I know that Karen Levitt is a known liar. I know who she associates with. So, for me, the choice is simple, but I don't know everything that's going on. This is family drama stuff, but it does show the character of who the Trump and the Levitt type people are. It's not hard to see. And hopefully that situation will be resolved, but that's what's going on. And in that particular person's case, I think she has been in the USA since like 1996, since she was age 6. I remember reading that. I was like, dang, like really a long time. So, that's Trump's going after all kinds of people though with that. And, the thing about the immigration system, it's really slow. It's really convoluted. And if you guys don't know, so I always have to tell my story because sometimes people don't know, because they'll say, sometimes people think they don't know anyone who's been affected. But, I was brought by the U.S. military to the USA when I was a baby, and I was not a citizen. The American military brought me to the USA and didn't make me a citizen, if you can believe that. And it took years to go through the system. It's a very, very complicated situation. And you never know anyone else's situation. There's all sorts of situations out there. And I think the biggest problem with the Trump people, they're just so blinded by, hate and racism that they don't care about the Constitution or the law, just burn down everything, I guess, and arrest everybody. And so it's such a sick culture, to be frank. And I try to say it in the nicest way possible. So there's that. So I try to focus on the money stuff, because I think at the end of the day, I hope at least that people care about having a job and putting food on the table. I hope so. When you look what the Trump people are doing, you can just see how out of touch Trump is. So for example, I'll go through it with you. Trump's top advisors waged campaign to shift his focus to high prices. So basically, I think what was going on before is that Trump people just like tell Trump a bunch of like whacked out stuff. So then Trump goes on TV and says, we're getting in 22 trillion or whatever. So I think Trump really is that dumb. Now, there's different ways you can look at it. Is he just purposely lying about the 22 trillion, or does he really believe it? I'm on the more side of dumb and gullible, and he believes whatever his advisors tell him. But who knows? He could just be a vote liar. It depends if you wanted to go with, delusional and dementia, or just lying, or a combination of the two. But that's where we're at. And so they actually have to try to convince him to talk about reality, which is funny, because they see that they're going to lose the midterms, basically is what it boils down to. Let me read it. You'll see. It says, just before President Trump left the White House for Thanksgiving, top aides met with him in his private dining room. So like he's eating food, right? Time to meet, dude. To discuss inflation and the economy, in hopes he would collaborate his message on affordability. So I'm sure Trump's watching Fox News, eating his, fried chicken, and they're like, Trump, we got to talk about stuff, because like we're going to get crushed in the midterms, and we're getting, hearing from all of our representatives and senators, stuff like that. They're all going to get crushed. And Trump's like, seriously, you have to imagine like how this would play out, right? So they're meeting in the dining room, and it says here, in another meeting last month, so there's another time, this time in the Oval Office. So there he's probably playing with his army thing, and he's got like toys in there. No, for reals, it's like he's got a toy Marine One, and he's got like a toy Arch thing. I've been seeing things about the toys. If you want to watch videos about the toys, you can find it. But he's got a bunch of toys in the White House. Seriously, in the White House. Anyway, it says in another meeting last month, this time in the Oval Office, aides presented Trump with his surveys from one of the president's own pollsters, detailing voters' concerns about the cost of living. So he's busy playing with his toys, and then I got to show him the stuff like, hey, you know what? People are getting crushed out there, Trump. His team has begun showing him social media posts that illustrate how Americans view the economy. That's how they talk and communicate with him. So I would bet, so when you read stuff about this stuff, you can't get photos on everything. You just have to understand what they're saying. But I would bet, though, they're bringing in huge sort of presentation cards and putting, signs and memes to communicate with Trump, because that's all he understands. Like, he probably needs to be shown like these big pictures of like someone saying, stuff is too expensive, or look at the price of eggs. But it's so bizarre how you have to communicate. He's a moron. That's the best way to describe it. If you can't see it, I don't know what to tell you, other than, well, I'll just be nice about it. I'll just say, just watch my channel. Top aides have taken turns, right? Now we got to take turns on this, talking to their boss about his economic messaging, and the need to emphasize what voters are feeling. Almost every senior White House official is involved in the effort. It's kind of like, like when you go through this stuff, it just shows you how whacked out everything is. Seriously, if you guys know this movie Airplane, it's an old movie. If you know the movie, you probably know the exact movie I'm talking about. There's a scene where there's like someone kind of freaking out, and someone starts yelling at this passenger, is like, "Why are you freaking out?" And they, slap the person in the face, and then someone's like, "No, you're doing it all wrong," and they start doing the same thing, slapping the face. It's a joke. It's a comedy. Then it turns out there's a whole line of people to wake the person up. Basically, it's a joke. But the point is, though, it's like the White House is now airplane. And you have to like get the KFC out of Trump's hands, get the toys out of his hands, and like shake him like, "Hey, you got to go on the road. You got to go." I think they're sending him to Pennsylvania, and you got to go talk to people about affordability now. And it shows you how ridiculous and disingenuous this stuff is, because Trump doesn't know anything about regular person's lives at all. And what his advisors do know, though, because they're not stupid people. Well, a lot of them are stupid, but other ones are not that stupid. They get messages from their, say, like I said, representative senators, and when they see like, hey, we got angry town halls, we're falling in the polls, people are not going to rerun again or whatever, we're going to get crushed in the midterms. These are politicians. They want to win elections. That's what they want to do. And the big issue is it becomes really apparent that they're not really concerned about helping regular people at all. So, for example, there's another one. This just came out, and this would be a massive scandal in any other normal country, but we're talking about USA here at the moment. Trump lashes out at Democrat for lack of loyalty after pardon. It's like, okay. And so basically, Trump pardons this guy. I think his name is Henry Cooler. The guy is going to run as a Democrat, and then Trump's all mad about that. And there was an expectation, I think, that Trump wanted him to switch to Republican or whatever. Now, the way they word it here is that there's no explicit expectation, but just the way Trump's world works, quid pro quo kind of stuff. So, for example, I'll just read it. It says, quote, "Oh, well, next time, no more Mr. Nice Guy." It's from Trump, I guess. And it says, Trump wrote Sunday morning on social media, signaling frustration with Representative Henry Cooler, I think his name is, who was charged last year with his wife with allegedly taking nearly $600,000 in foreign bribes. So, Trump likes to do that kind of stuff and give pardons to those kind of people. And then it says here, Trump didn't explicitly seek a promise from Cooler that he would switch parties in exchange for the pardon, but the president expected he would, according to a person familiar with the matter. And all this is, by Trump getting so upset that someone is doing something after you do them a favor effectively, shows that there's some sort of expectation there. Because if you weren't upset by someone doing that, then you would just be concerned about, you felt like someone was wrong. So I think it's obvious this kind of stuff. This is Trump's world here. I mean, all this stuff is obvious when you go through it. But for a lot of the MAGA people, I guess they either don't understand these kind of things. That's why they put it in very simple scenarios. Just imagine Trump all day, just eating KFC, playing with his like little toy soldiers, and his advisors are like have to like treat him like a baby and like these big flashcard, presentation cards to get his attention and try to get him to say stuff. and then what he ends up doing probably is when he goes to Pennsylvania, he'll literally just read. And you can always tell when Trump's reading versus when he's actually talking. And then when he talks, he just starts going off about Biden or whatever. I personally think, my just personal opinion and stuff, I think he's, always going to be jealous of Biden or Obama, because it's just, that's who this person is. He always knows he's going to be inferior to them. And so he just keeps talking about it. And he's got these weird mental issues as well. And then his advisors try to caught him along. But I just don't think this is sustainable. Like, we're watching this bizarro, soap opera in the White House daily, but this is no way to run. And I'm still waiting for these people to start quitting. I'll be curious if Karen Levitt in particular, because we just talked about it earlier, if she actually makes it the full years. The thing is, like, who are you going to get to replace her? So we'll see. So that's my thoughts on this stuff. I'd like to hear yours, and I'll catch you on the next video.